I was 67 years old when my daughter called to tell me she'd sold everything I owned. My name is Margaret Chin, and the day my only child discarded me like trash was the day I stopped being the woman she thought I knew. The phone rang while I sat in that sterile waiting room, surrounded by coughing strangers and outdated magazines. My daughter Iris's voice came through cold, mechanical, like she was reading from a script she'd rehearsed. "Mom, Daniel and I are flying to Italy tomorrow. I sold the lake house and your sedan. We needed the funds. Goodbye." The line went dead before I could respond. 42 years of sacrifice, of putting her first, of choosing her happiness over my own, and she ended it with a 30-second phone call. But here's what Iris didn't know. I smiled, because 6 months earlier, my husband Vincent had handed me an envelope with very specific instructions. Vincent had collapsed at our breakfast table on a Tuesday morning. One moment he was pouring my coffee, kissing my temple, telling me he loved me. The next moment he was gone. Just like that. 44 years of marriage erased in a heartbeat. The grief nearly destroyed me. Iris seemed different after the funeral, more attentive, visiting twice a week instead of once a month. She helped arrange the service, drove me to appointments, suggested I get a full medical checkup. "You need to take better care of yourself now that you're alone," she'd say with that smile I mistook for love. Now I understood it was calculation. The lake house had been our sanctuary. Vincent and I bought it when Iris was 13, scraping together every penny we had. Summer after summer, we'd drive up there, build bonfires, celebrate birthdays. Iris brought her boyfriends there, then Daniel, her husband. I'd cook for everyone, clean up after them, wash their towels. It was tradition, family, and she reduced it all to a bank deposit. The sedan was worse. That old Buick was Vincent's pride. He washed it every Sunday without fail, changed the oil like clockwork, parked it in the exact same spot under the oak tree. Iris knew what that car meant to me. His scent still lingered in the upholstery. She sold it anyway. The nurse called my name. I followed her back to the examination room, my mind elsewhere. The doctor said I was healthy for my age, just needed more rest and better nutrition. I nodded, smiled, played the part. But all I could think about was that envelope waiting in my dresser drawer. Vincent had given it to me 3 days before he died. "Margaret, put this somewhere safe. If something happens to me, open it when you're ready. Only when you feel strong enough." I'd tucked it away and forgotten about it in the chaos of funeral arrangements and suffocating grief. I took the bus home. No car anymore, according to Iris. I sat by the window watching the city blur past. All those people rushing through their own private tragedies. I had mine too, and I was about to discover just how deep it ran. When I got home, I went straight to the bedroom. The envelope sat exactly where I'd left it, my name written in Vincent's careful handwriting across the front. My hands shook as I picked it up. I could feel multiple documents inside, heavy with secrets. I sat on the bed we'd shared for 4 decades and opened it slowly, like unwrapping something sacred. What I found inside stopped my breath. Legal documents, property deeds, bank certificates, and a letter in Vincent's handwriting that made tears stream down my face. "My dearest Margaret, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Forgive me for keeping secrets, but I wanted to protect you from worry. Over the years, I invested everything we saved. We don't just own the lake house. We own 7 other properties, including the apartment tower where Iris and Daniel live. We have shares in 4 companies worth more than you can imagine. You're wealthy, my love. You always were, but now it's official." My hands trembled as I sorted through the papers. Deeds to houses scattered across 3 neighborhoods. A downtown penthouse. A small inn on the coast. And yes, the 22-story apartment complex where my daughter lived in luxury. Vincent had been the silent owner for 12 years. Everything held in the name of a corporation I'd never heard of. According to the documents, I was the sole heir of that corporation. Bank statements showed accounts I never knew existed, with balances that seemed impossible. Vincent had driven a bus for 38 years, but he'd also been a genius with money. Every dollar we saved, every sacrifice we made, he'd multiplied in silence. And I'd known nothing. In his letter, Vincent explained why he'd hidden everything. "You know our daughter, Margaret. If Iris knew about this money, everything would change. I want her to love us for who we are, not what we have." The irony was devastating. Our daughter had abandoned us thinking we were broke when we actually owned half her world. That night I couldn't sleep. I walked through our small house, touching the furniture Iris always criticized as outdated, looking at family photos on the walls. There was one of her at 7 years old, sitting on Vincent's lap, laughing at something he'd said. Where did that little girl go? When did she become so cold? The phone rang early the next morning. Iris again, her voice different now, softer, dripping with false sweetness. Mom, how are you doing? I wanted to let you know we transferred your portion from the sales. It's not much, but it should help you survive for a few months while you look for something smaller. My portion, she called it. How generous of her to give me 30% of my own belongings. 30%? I asked, keeping my voice steady. Yes, Mom. We obviously weren't going to leave you with nothing. We needed the rest for Daniel's business venture in Italy. It's an incredible opportunity. But don't worry, when we get back in 6 months, we'll help you find a modest apartment. Something manageable. Manageable. As if she had any idea what I could manage. I see. When do you leave? This afternoon. Our bags are packed. But Mom, I knew you'd understand. You've always been so compassionate. We love you. She hung up. I stood there holding the phone, and for the first time in months I laughed. Actually laughed. The situation was absurd. My daughter had robbed me, kicked me out of my own life, spoke to me like I was a burden, all to fund a European adventure that would probably end in disaster. But what hurt most wasn't the money. It was how easily she'd erased me. 42 years of devotion, of sacrifice, of unconditional love, and she deleted me from her life with a 3-minute phone call. I checked my bank account. Sure enough, they'd deposited an amount that probably seemed generous to them. To me it was an insult. They'd sold the lake house for far less than its worth, probably desperate for quick cash. They'd sold Vincent's Buick for pennies. That afternoon, I watched from my window as Iris and Daniel loaded luggage into a taxi. She carried an expensive designer bag. He had 2 massive suitcases. They laughed, kissed, made excited plans. They never looked toward my window, never waved goodbye. When the taxi disappeared around the corner, I sat in the kitchen with tea and Vincent's documents spread across the table. I had decisions to make. I could call a lawyer, reclaim everything, destroy them legally. But something told me there was a better way, a more educational approach. I called Thomas Reeves, the lawyer who'd handled Vincent's estate. He'd been at the funeral, offered his condolences, told me to call if I needed anything. Well, now I needed him. Mrs. Chun, good to hear from you. How are you holding up? I'm managing, Mr. Reeves. I need to see you urgently. I found some documents from Vincent that I don't quite understand. Of course. Can you come tomorrow morning? I'll be there. That night, for the first time since Vincent died, I slept soundly. I dreamed of him sitting in his favorite chair reading the paper like he did every morning. When he saw me, he smiled and said, "It's about time, Margaret. Time you stood up for yourself." I woke with a strange feeling. Not happiness exactly, but not the crushing sadness either. It was determination. For the first time in months, I had a clear purpose. I was going to reclaim what was mine, but not the way Iris expected. The next morning, I dressed carefully. My burgundy dress, the one Vincent said made me look elegant. I fixed my hair, applied subtle makeup. In the mirror, I saw a woman I hadn't seen in a long time. A strong woman. Mr. Reeves's office was downtown in an old building with marble floors and tall windows. He greeted me warmly, but when I showed him the documents, his expression transformed completely. "Mrs. Chun, this is extraordinary. Vincent was incredibly astute. According to these papers you own." "I know, Mr. Reeves. I've reviewed everything. What I need to know is what I can do legally." Mr. Reeves explained that everything was legitimate, that I was the rightful owner of all those properties. He confirmed what I'd suspected. The lake house sale was fraudulent because Iris had no authority to sell it. "We can recover the property immediately, Mrs. Chun, and we can press charges against your daughter for fraud." "No," I said firmly. "No legal action. I want to handle this differently. I need everything to remain confidential for now. Can you help me?" He studied me with curiosity, but nodded. "Of course. You're my client. What do you need?" I needed him to quietly reverse the lake house sale, to help me gain direct control of all my properties, especially the apartment tower where Iris lived. "I understand. It'll take a few weeks, but it's entirely feasible." "Perfect. And Mr. Reeves, no one can know I'm behind this." "Not yet." When I left his office, I felt like I'd woken from a decade-long sleep. I walked through downtown streets watching people, buildings, life continuing as normal. But for me, everything had shifted. I had a plan. The following weeks were the strangest of my life. Officially, I was a poor widow abandoned by her daughter. But secretly, I was a wealthy woman orchestrating the quiet recovery of my empire. Mr. Reeves worked efficiently, calling every few days with updates. I decided to stay in my small house. It was mine, after all, though Iris probably expected me to move into a single room somewhere. Every morning I'd wake, have breakfast at the table where Vincent and I had shared thousands of meals, then walk through the neighborhood. Neighbors greeted me with that mixture of pity and curiosity reserved for recent widows. Diane, my neighbor of 20 years, approached me one afternoon while I watered the front garden. "Margaret, dear, is it true Iris went to Italy and left you alone?" "Yes, she and Daniel have business plans there." "And how will you manage?" "We all know Vincent didn't leave much." "If only you knew," I thought. "Don't worry, Diane. I'll be fine. Do you need anything? I can bring food, help with shopping." "You're very kind, but I'm okay, really." Diane looked at me with that expression I'd seen 100 times since the funeral. Compassion mixed with relief that it wasn't her tragedy. These conversations repeated constantly. The grocer, the pharmacist, the woman at the corner store. Everyone spoke in soft tones reserved for the unfortunate. I nodded, smiled, thanked them for their concern. But inside, part of me enjoyed the performance. It was like living two lives. Mr. Reeves called on a Wednesday morning. "Mrs. Chun, excellent news. I've nullified the lake house sale. The buyers didn't know it was fraudulent, so they got their money back without issue. The house is yours again." "Excellent, Mr. Reeves. And the apartment tower? That's more complex. Technically, you've always owned it through the corporation, but we need administrative changes for direct control. Another 2 weeks. Perfect. Keep me informed." After hanging up, I sat with my coffee thinking about Iris. She'd been in Italy for 3 weeks. Not a call, not a message, not even a postcard. To her, I'd ceased to exist the moment she got the money. But that was about to change. I decided to visit the lake house. I took the bus to the lake, the same route Vincent and I had taken hundreds of times. The house looked exactly as I remembered. Small, painted cream with a porch overlooking the water. The temporary owners had added potted plants on the steps, but otherwise everything was the same. I sat on the curb across the street and stared at it for an hour. I remembered summer afternoons when Iris was young, running along the shore, building sandcastles. Vincent grilling fish while I made salads in the kitchen. Iris bringing friends, then boyfriends, then Daniel. All those happy moments she'd reduced to a transaction. An elderly man came out of the house and saw me sitting there. He approached cautiously. "Are you all right, ma'am?" "Yes, thank you. Just remembering. I knew the former owners." "Ah, yes. Terrible situation. They told us the elderly lady was very ill and needed to sell quickly. We thought it was a steal, but turns out the sale wasn't legal. Had to give the house back." "Did you meet them?" "No, everything was through intermediaries. They said the daughter was handling it because the mother was incapacitated. Such a sad situation." I left with a heavy heart. It wasn't just the money. It was how easily Iris had lied about me. She'd invented a story about my illness, used my supposed vulnerability to justify her theft. To her, I wasn't a person with feelings. I was an obstacle to remove. That night, I called Mr. Reeves again. "Mr. Reeves, I need you to help me recover Vincent's sedan too." "That'll be difficult, Mrs. Chun. The car was in your name, but your daughter had power of attorney allowing the sale." "How is that possible?" "Apparently you signed it months ago, after your husband's death. Don't you remember?" There it was. The moment Iris had started planning this. I vaguely remembered signing papers she'd brought, telling me they were for funeral and estate arrangements. I'd been so consumed by grief, I'd signed without reading. How naive I'd been. "I understand, Mr. Reeves. Can we get it back?" "We can try, but it's complicated. We'd need to prove you signed under deception or coercion." "Let's do it. I want back everything they took." Over the next weeks, I developed a strange routine. Mornings, I was the poor widow everyone knew, shopping for necessities, chatting with neighbors, maintaining appearances. Afternoons, I became a businesswoman, studying Vincent's documents, talking to Mr. Reeves, planning my next moves. I learned things about finance I never thought I'd need to know. I discovered Vincent had been even smarter than I'd imagined. Every investment was carefully calculated. The apartment tower, for example, wasn't just profitable from rent. It was in an area rapidly appreciating in value. I also discovered Daniel had massive debt. He'd taken loans using their apartment as collateral, not knowing he wasn't the real owner. When the banks figured this out, he'd be in serious trouble. Mr. Reeves called one Friday with crucial news. Mrs. Chun, we've finished the paperwork. You now have complete control of all properties. I also recovered Vincent's sedan. The buyer was an acquaintance, and when I explained the situation, he agreed to return it for a small compensation. Excellent work, Mr. Reeves. Now I need you to help me with one more thing. I want you to send a letter to my daughter. What kind of letter? An eviction notice. Silence on the other end. Mrs. Chun, are you certain you want to do this? Completely certain. She decided I wasn't important in her life. Now she's going to discover how important I really am. I understand. Should I send it to Italy? No. Give it to her when she returns. I have a feeling that'll be very soon. I wasn't wrong. That same afternoon, Diane came running with fresh neighborhood gossip. Margaret, did you hear? Daniel's in trouble with the bank. My cousin who works there said they're investigating loans he took using his apartment as collateral, but it turns out the apartment isn't his. Really? Yes. And apparently Iris didn't know anything. They're saying she'll have to come back from Italy to sort out this mess. What a complicated situation. And the worst part, apparently Daniel lied about the business in Italy. There was no business. He just wanted to escape his debts here. Perfect. Everything was unfolding exactly as I'd anticipated. Iris had trusted Daniel, had sacrificed her relationship with me for him. And now she was discovering he wasn't the man she thought. That night, I sat on the porch with tea, looking at stars. Vincent used to say stars were souls of people who'd lived full lives, watching over their families from above. If that was true, he was up there watching his plan unfold perfectly. Thank you, my love, I whispered to the sky. Thank you for taking care of me even after death. Mr. Reeves called early the next day. Mrs. Chun news. Your daughter just arrived in the country. She's at the airport. Alone. Alone? Yes. Apparently Daniel stayed in Italy. Rumors say they had a major fight. I see. Did you send the letter? Sending it today. She should receive it tomorrow. I hung up and stood in the kitchen, feeling a mixture of nerves and anticipation. After weeks of silent planning, the moment for the first real move had arrived. Iris was about to discover her mother wasn't the defenseless victim she believed. Iris arrived at her apartment Tuesday night. Diane told me the next day, always my reliable informant. Margaret, your daughter came back last night. I saw her go in with one suitcase. She looked terrible. Pale, dark circles, like she'd been crying the entire flight. Completely alone. And something strange. When the doorman asked for her keys, she didn't have them. Had to get the superintendent to let her in with the emergency copy. Interesting. Daniel had the keys, which meant he'd probably decided not to return. Or maybe Iris discovered something about him and fled. Either way, my daughter was back. And very soon she'd receive my little welcome gift. Mr. Reeves called that afternoon. Mrs. Chun, the letter was delivered an hour ago. The doorman confirmed your daughter received it personally. Perfect. How long did we give her? 30 days to vacate, standard legal requirement. And Mr. Reeves, you're sure you want to proceed? She is your daughter. Mr. Reeves, my daughter kicked me out of my own house with a phone call. She sold my belongings without permission. She treated me like garbage. Now she's going to learn that actions have consequences. I understand. I just wanted to ensure you'd considered all implications. I've considered them, Mr. Reeves. All of them. That night I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake imagining Iris's face when she read the letter. The confusion, the disbelief, the panic. She'd probably think it was a mistake, that someone was trying to scam her. But when she called to verify, she'd discover everything was completely legal. The next morning, as if waiting for my call, the phone rang at 8. Iris, her voice desperate. Mom, I need to talk to you urgently. Good morning, honey. How was Italy? Mom, I don't have time for that. I received a strange letter yesterday. It says I have to vacate my apartment in 30 days. It must be a mistake, right? Do you know anything about this? An eviction notice. How odd. From whom? From a company I've never heard of. Wait, let me find it. Chun Legacy Investments. Do you know this company? Vincent had used his own name for the corporation. How poetic. No, honey. Never heard of it. Are you sure the letter's legitimate? That's what I want to find out. Mom, I need your help. I don't know what to do. Daniel left me in Italy. He ran off with some waitress, and now I come back to this. I don't understand what's happening. There was the confirmation. Daniel had abandoned her. Probably when the money ran out, or when he realized his legal problems were more serious than he thought. Poor Iris. She'd sacrificed her family for a worthless man. I'm so sorry, honey. Where are you now? I'm in the apartment, but I don't know for how long. Mom, can I come see you? I need to talk to someone. I don't have anyone else. The irony was exquisite. Now that she was left without the man for whom she'd abandoned me, she remembered she had a mother. Of course, honey. Come over whenever you want. I'm on my way. I hung up and looked in the mirror. I had to be perfect for this performance. I put on my conservative gray dress, tied my hair in a simple bun, practiced my expression of worried but resigned mother. When Iris arrived, she'd see exactly what she expected. A poor, vulnerable widow who'd been abandoned by her own daughter. Iris arrived an hour later. When I opened the door, I was shocked by how terrible she looked. She'd lost weight, had deep circles under her eyes, her expensive clothes wrinkled and unkempt. Her eyes were red from crying. Mom, she said, and for a moment I thought she'd hug me, but she stopped, as if suddenly remembering how things had ended between us. Come in, honey. Want some coffee? Yes, please. We sat in the kitchen at the same table where I'd read Vincent's documents weeks ago. Iris looked small in that chair, lost, just like when she was a child coming to tell me about school problems. Mom, I'm so sorry for how I left. I know I didn't treat you well. It's in the past, honey. No, it's not. I treated you horribly. I said terrible things. And now, her voice broke. Now I have no one. What happened with Daniel? He left with a 23-year-old hotel waitress in Rome. Turns out there was never any business in Italy. It was all lies. He just wanted to escape the debts he had here and use the money from selling your house to fund his adventure. All the debts. Yes, Mom. So many debts. Seems he'd been taking loans for years, using our apartment as collateral. But now I find out he wasn't the owner of the apartment. How is that possible? Here was my opportunity. I don't know, honey. Property matters are very complicated. The problem is the banks are coming after me for his debts. They say since we were married, I'm also responsible. And on top of that, this eviction notice. Mom, I don't know what to do. I don't have money. I don't have a job. I don't have anywhere to live. She started crying, real tears of genuine desperation. For a moment, my mother's heart softened. I wanted to hug her, console her, tell her everything would be okay. But then I remembered the coldness in her voice during that phone call, the ease with which she'd discarded me, the way she'd spoken to me like I was a burden. Did you talk to a lawyer about the letter? I don't have money for a lawyer, Mom. We spent everything in Italy. Daniel took what little was left when he ran off with that woman. So what are you going to do? I don't know. I thought, maybe I could stay with you for a while, just until I find a job and can get a small place. There was the question I'd been waiting for. After kicking me out of my own house, after selling my belongings, after treating me like garbage, she now wanted me to rescue her. She wanted the poor widow she'd created to save her from the consequences of her own actions. Of course, honey. This will always be your home. Iris looked at me with surprise, as if she hadn't expected it to be so easy. Really, Mom? After everything? You're my daughter, Iris. That will never change. She got up and hugged me. It was a desperate embrace from someone drowning, clinging to the only thing they could find. I hugged her back, but not with unconditional love like before. Now there was calculation in my embrace. Strategy. Thank you, Mom. I promise I'll find a job soon. I won't be a burden. Don't worry about that now. Rest, recover, then we'll see what your options are. Iris left that afternoon to get things from her apartment. I stayed in the kitchen thinking about how easy it had been. She'd come to me exactly as I'd planned, broken, desperate, with no options. And best of all, she suspected nothing. To her, I was still the poor abandoned mother who needed her compassion. But this was only the first part of my plan. Having her live with me would give me the perfect opportunity for the next phase. I was going to let her settle in, feel safe, believe she'd found refuge in my house. And then, when she least expected it, I was going to teach her the difference between being poor by choice and being poor by consequence. That night, I called Mr. Reeves. Mr. Reeves, I need you to do something else. I want you to investigate Daniel's debts. I want to know exactly how much he owes, to whom, and what legal options I have to separate them from my daughter. That'll take time, but it's doable. Perfect. And Mr. Reeves, absolute secrecy. No one can know I'm behind this investigation. Of course, Mrs. Chun. May I ask what your final objective is? My objective, Mr. Reeves, is very simple. I'm going to save my daughter. But first she has to understand what it truly means to hit rock bottom. Iris moved in the next day. She arrived with 2 suitcases and a cardboard box. Everything that was left of her previous life. I watched her unpack in her old room, the same one she'd slept in as a teenager, and I could see the humiliation in every movement. She'd gone from living in a luxury penthouse to taking refuge in her childhood bedroom. "Mom, I found this in the apartment," she said, showing me a manila envelope. It was among Daniel's things. "It has your name on it." It was another of Vincent's envelopes. My heart raced, but I kept my composure. My name? How strange. Yes, look. She showed me the envelope. Indeed, my name was written in Vincent's handwriting, but this envelope was different from the one I'd found in my dresser. This one was smaller, newer. "Maybe Daniel found it among Dad's things when he died and forgot to give it to you," Iris said. "It's possible. Can I see it?" I opened the envelope in her presence. Inside was a short letter and a small key. The letter said, "Margaret, if you're reading this after receiving the main envelope, it means our daughter is going through difficult times. This key opens safety deposit box 247 at the Central Bank downtown. There's something there that can help you help her, but use it wisely. With eternal love, Vincent." Iris read over my shoulder. A safety deposit box. Dad had a safety deposit box. I had no idea, I lied. "Should we go see what's in there?" "I don't know, honey. Maybe it's better to leave things as they are." "But Mom, maybe there's something important. Documents, or I don't know, maybe something valuable that could help us." The desperation in her voice was obvious. Iris was clinging to any possibility of finding a way out of her situation. I was going to let her cling a little longer before showing her the complete reality. "Okay," I said after a calculated pause. "We can go tomorrow." That night, Iris and I had dinner together for the first time in months. She cooked, trying to be useful, but the food tasted of guilt and desperation. She told me more details about Italy, and each story was worse than the last. "Daniel lied about everything, Mom. Not just the business, but the debts too. I thought he only owed a little money, but turns out he owes over 200,000. And the worst part is he used my name for some loans without me knowing. How is that possible? He forged my signature. When I married him, I gave him documents to handle our joint banking. I never thought he'd use them for this. Do you have any way to prove you didn't know?" "I don't know. It's all so complicated. The banks say since we were married, I'm responsible for all his debts anyway. And the divorce? I don't even know where Daniel is now. He just vanished. His phone's disconnected. He doesn't answer emails. Nothing. It's as if he disappeared." Perfect. Daniel had run like the rat he'd always been, leaving Iris to face the consequences alone. In a way, he'd done me a favor. Now my daughter was experiencing exactly what I'd felt when she abandoned me. Betrayal by someone she'd completely trusted. The next day, we went to the bank. Iris was nervous, hopeful. I maintained my act as a confused widow who didn't understand finance. The bank employee led us to the safety deposit area, verified my identification, and opened box 247. Inside were jewels. Many jewels. Rings, necklaces, bracelets, earrings. I recognized some pieces as heirlooms from Vincent's family. Others were completely new to me. There was also a letter explaining the origin of each piece and approximate values. Iris gasped. "Mom, this must be worth a fortune." "You think so?" "Yes. Look at this emerald. This pearl necklace. Mom, Dad saved a treasure here." According to Vincent's letter, the jewels were worth approximately 300,000. It was a significant amount, but nothing compared to the rest of my assets. It was like finding loose change under the sofa when you have millions in the bank. "What do we do with this, Mom?" "I don't know, honey. They're family memories. But Mom, we could sell some pieces. With this money, you could get your lake house back, and I could pay some of Daniel's debts." There it was again. Even finding something valuable. Iris's first reaction was thinking how to use it to solve the problems Daniel created. She hadn't learned anything yet. "Are you sure you want to use your father's inheritance to pay Daniel's debts?" "What other option do I have, Mom? If I don't pay something soon, the banks will foreclose on everything I have." And technically I don't own anything. Everything was in Daniel's name. Think carefully, honey. Once you sell these jewels, you can't get them back. I know, but what else can I do? I can't get a job with all these legal claims pending. No employer wants to hire someone with so many legal problems. We took the jewels home. Iris spread them on the kitchen table and examined them one by one, calculating which she could sell and which she could keep. It was painful watching her reduce decades of family history to numbers on a spreadsheet. Over the next days, I watched Iris struggle with decisions she'd never had to make. How to stretch money for food, how to negotiate with creditors, how to look for work when your credit history is ruined. "Mom, I went to 4 job interviews today," she told me one evening, coming home with swollen feet and exhausted face. 3 told me they can't hire me because of pending legal problems. The 4th offered me a part-time job cleaning offices at night. Are you going to take it? I have no choice. It pays very little, but it's better than nothing. And I can work nights, so I can keep looking for something better during the day. Seeing my daughter, who'd lived comfortably for 40 years, preparing to clean offices at night broke my heart. But it also filled me with pride. She was finally facing reality without expecting someone else to solve her problems. Are you sure you can handle that much physical work? I'll have to learn. I can't keep being a burden to you, Mom. It's bad enough you're letting me live here for free. This is your home, Iris. No, Mom. This is your home, and I'm here because of your generosity. But I'm not going to take advantage of it forever. One night while Iris was at her first cleaning shift, Diane came to visit. She sat in my kitchen drinking tea, looking at family photos on the walls. "Margaret, I have to ask you something. Did you know Iris was going to come back in these conditions?" "What do you mean?" "Well, when she left, she seemed so sure of herself, so arrogant. She talked about the great life she'd have in Italy, how successful Daniel was. And now she's back, completely broken, working a cleaning job, living with you again. Life takes many turns, Diane." "Yes, but there's something else. I've been watching Iris these days. She looks different. Not just sad, but humble, as if she learned something important." Diane had always been perceptive. "What do you think she learned?" "I think she learned the value of things she took for granted, like having a mother who loves her unconditionally." "Maybe. Margaret, can I tell you something? When Iris left and treated you so badly, many of us thought you'd never forgive her. But here you are, taking care of her again, giving her a home when she has nowhere else to go. She's my daughter, Diane." "Yes, but not every mother would do what you're doing, especially after being treated the way you were." If Diane only knew the complete truth, that I had the power to solve all of Iris's problems, but was choosing to let her suffer a little longer, so she'd learn the full lesson. "Do you think I'm doing the right thing?" "I think you're doing what a good mother would do. But I also think Iris needs to fully understand what she lost when she abandoned you." "What do you mean?" "I think she needs to value you not just as the mother who rescues her when she's in trouble, but as the strong woman who built a stable life for 40 years. She needs to respect you, not just need you." Diane had hit exactly the point of my entire plan. I didn't want Iris to come back to me out of desperation. I wanted her to come back out of genuine respect and mature love. That night when Iris returned from work, I saw her arrive tired but with new dignity. She'd earned those few dollars with her own effort, and that meant something to her. "How was your first day?" "Hard, but not as bad as I thought. The other ladies helped me a lot. One of them, Mrs. Patterson, taught me tricks to clean more efficiently." "Mrs. Patterson?" "Yes. She's 63 and has been cleaning offices for 18 years. She told me she started after her husband left her with 4 small children. She says it's not the job she dreamed of, but it gave her independence and dignity. She sounds like a wise woman." "She is. She said something that made me think a lot. She told me there are 2 types of people who end up doing this job. The ones who are there because they never had opportunities, and the ones who are there because they ruined the opportunities they did have." She asked me which group I was in. "And what did you tell her?" I told her the truth, that I had all the opportunities in the world, a family that loved me, a stable home, an inheritance, and that I ruined it all by following a worthless man. What did she say? She laughed and said, "Well, honey, then at least you know exactly why you're here. That puts you one step ahead of most people." Iris poured herself water and sat with me at the table. "Mom, I want you to know something. These past few weeks have been the hardest of my life, but also the most important." "Why?" Because I finally understand what really matters. It's not money. It's not living in the fanciest apartment. It's not impressing people. It's having people who genuinely love you, who are there when everything falls apart. Iris. No, let me finish. You have every right to hate me for what I did. I abandoned you when you needed me most. I took everything Dad left you. I treated you like you were a nuisance. And now I'm here again, expecting you to forgive me and take care of me. I already forgave you, honey. But I haven't forgiven myself. And I won't until I prove I've truly changed, that I've learned from my mistakes. Mr. Reeves called me the next morning with news I'd been waiting for. Mrs. Chun, I have excellent news. The legal process is almost complete. We can get your daughter out of all of Daniel's debts. It was time. After weeks of watching Iris struggle, work, and reflect on her mistakes, the moment had finally arrived to show her she'd never been alone, that she'd always had someone quietly watching over her. Mr. Reeves, I want you to organize a meeting. It's time for my daughter to know the whole truth. Mr. Reeves arranged the meeting for Friday morning at his office. I told Iris I'd made an appointment with a lawyer who could help with her legal problems, but I didn't explain details. She agreed to come, though she was nervous about the cost. Mom, I don't have money to pay a lawyer. I barely have enough to cover basic expenses. Don't worry about that now, honey. Let's just hear what he has to say. We arrived at Mr. Reeves's office on time. Iris had dressed in her best clothes, which now looked slightly big on her thinner body. She was nervous, wringing her hands, expecting another piece of bad news on her endless list of problems. Mr. Reeves greeted us with his usual professional smile. Mrs. Chun, Miss Chun, thank you for coming. Thank you for seeing us, Iris replied. Although I should warn you, my financial situation is very complicated, and I probably can't afford high fees. That's exactly what we're going to discuss, Mr. Reeves said, exchanging a look with me. But first, I need you to review these documents. Mr. Reeves handed Iris a thick folder. She opened it and began reading, her expression gradually changing from confusion to surprise. I don't understand. These documents say Daniel forged my signature, that there's evidence of fraud, that I'm not responsible for the debts. That's correct. We've been investigating your case for the past few weeks. We found enough evidence to prove you were a victim of identity fraud. But how is that possible? Who paid for this investigation? I don't have money for this. Mr. Reeves looked at me. It was my moment. Iris, there's something I need to tell you. What, Mom? I took a deep breath. After weeks of acting, I was finally going to reveal the truth. Your father left me more than you knew. Much more. What do you mean? Mr. Reeves, show her the other documents. Mr. Reeves took out a second folder and handed it to Iris. This time the documents were property deeds, bank statements, investment certificates. The entire fortune Vincent had built in secret. Iris read in silence for several minutes. Her face went through a complete range of emotions. Confusion, disbelief, shock, and finally comprehension. Mom, this says you're the owner of the building where I lived. Yes. And that you have other properties, bank accounts, investments. Yes. This means when I sold the lake house, it was your house, and the sale was fraudulent. I already got it back. Iris stared at the papers, trying to process the information. How long have you known this? Since the day you called me from the doctor's office. You knew all this when I came back from Italy asking for help. Yes. You knew you could solve all my problems when you saw me crying every night? Yes. There was a long, tense silence. Iris closed the folders and looked directly into my eyes. Why, Mom? Why did you let me suffer when you could have helped me? This was the question I'd been waiting weeks to answer. Because you needed to learn something you couldn't learn any other way. What? You needed to learn the value of the things you'd lost. The value of family, of respect, of responsibility. When you abandoned me, it wasn't just money you took from me. It was dignity. It was love. It was trust. Iris started crying, but they weren't tears of self-pity like the ones she'd shed during these weeks. They were tears of deep understanding. I abandoned you when you needed me most. Yes. I treated you like garbage. Yes. And you saved me anyway. Yes, but not in the way you expected. I didn't save you by giving you money, so you could keep making the same mistakes. I saved you by letting you hit rock bottom, so you could learn to save yourself. Mr. Reeves discreetly intervened. Miss Chun, your mother has paid all legal expenses to free you from Daniel's debts. She's also recovered all properties that were sold fraudulently. You're completely free of legal problems. And the cleaning job I got, you can quit if you want, I said. But I hope you don't. Why? Because that job is teaching you something you never learned when everything was easy. It's teaching you the value of your own effort, the dignity of honest work, the importance of valuing every dollar you earn. Iris wiped her tears and looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen in years. It wasn't the look of a daughter who needs her mother, but the look of a grown woman who respects another woman. Do you forgive me, Mom? I forgave you a long time ago, honey. The question is, can you forgive yourself? I don't know if I can. I did unforgivable things. People make mistakes, Iris. The important thing is what we do after we recognize those mistakes. Mr. Reeves left us alone in his office for a few minutes. Iris and I sat in silence, processing everything that had happened. Mom, I want you to know something. Even if you didn't have all this money, even if you were really the poor widow I thought you were, I would have learned the same lesson. What lesson? That there's nothing more valuable than having someone who loves you unconditionally. During these past weeks, the only thing that kept me sane was knowing I had a home with you. That no matter how much I'd ruined my life, you were still my mother. That will never change, Iris. I know, but I also know I can never take that love for granted again. I have to earn it every day with respect, with gratitude, with actions, not just words. We left Mr. Reeves's office with a completely new relationship. We were no longer mother and daughter united by blood and habit. We were two grown women who had chosen each other after going through the most difficult test imaginable. The following weeks were about rebuilding, but not the kind Iris expected. Even though she now knew I had enough resources to solve all her problems, she decided to keep her night cleaning job. Mom, I need to finish what I started, she told me one afternoon as she prepared for work. I can't just go back to a comfortable life as if nothing happened. Are you sure? You don't have to punish yourself forever. It's not punishment. It's a way of remembering who I was and who I want to be now. I watched her put on her work uniform, something unthinkable months ago when she lived in that luxury penthouse with Daniel. But there was something different in her posture, in the way she moved. She was no longer the broken woman who'd arrived crying at my door. She was someone who'd found dignity in honest work. Diane came to visit that afternoon, as she had done every few days since Iris returned. Margaret, there are some very strange rumors going around the neighborhood. What kind of rumors? People are saying you're not as poor as we all thought. Someone saw Iris leaving a very elegant lawyer's office downtown, then saw her paying off all her debts at the bank. That costs a lot of money, Margaret. Diane knew me too well to fool her for long. What do you want to know exactly? I want to know if my friend of 40 years has been lying to me about her situation. I poured tea and sat across from her. It was time to be honest with someone else. Vincent left me more than anyone knew, Diane. Much more. How much more? Enough so Iris and I never have to worry about money again. Diane was silent for a moment, processing the information. And why did you pretend to be poor all these months? Because I needed Iris to learn something she couldn't learn any other way. I told her the whole story. Iris's cruel phone call, my plan of silent revenge, the weeks of watching her hit rock bottom, and finally the revelation in Mr. Reeves's office. Margaret, that's brilliant and terrible at the same time. Terrible. Yes, because you let your own daughter suffer when you could have helped her immediately. But also brilliant because I understand why you did it. You do. Yes. Iris needed to learn the value of what she'd lost. If you'd simply given her money to solve her problems, she would have learned there's always someone who'll rescue her from consequences of bad decisions. Exactly. But Margaret, didn't it hurt you to see her suffer? Every day. Every night I saw her crying. Every morning I saw her get up to go to work tired and defeated. But I knew if I rescued her too soon, she wouldn't have learned the full lesson. And do you think she learned it? Look for yourself. Iris knows she now has access to enough money to live comfortably, but she chose to keep her job. She knows she can move to a better place, but she decided to stay here with me. She knows she doesn't have to worry about debts, but she's using her own savings to help other women in similar situations. She's helping other women? Yes. She became friends with the lady she works with and is using money she earned cleaning offices to help a co-worker who's having trouble paying for her son's daycare. Diane smiled. That's not the Iris who went to Italy. No, she's not. This Iris understands money is a tool, not a goal. She understands dignity comes from work and respect, not from material possessions. That night when Iris returned from work, She found me reading in the living room. "Mom, I have to tell you something. Today Mrs. Patterson asked me if I was the daughter of the rich lady from the north side of town. What did you tell her?" I said yes. That you have enough money for me not to have to work. And you know what she asked me next? What? She asked why I was still working. So I explained it was because I need to prove to myself I can stand on my own 2 feet. And you know what she said? What? She laughed and said, "Honey, that's the difference between being rich and acting rich. Your mom taught you how to be truly rich." Mrs. Patterson is very wise. She is. And she made me understand something important. It's not about the money you have, but about how you use it and how you relate to it. Iris sat with me on the sofa. "Mom, I want you to know I've made a decision. I'm going to keep living here with you, but not as a daughter who's come back to her parents' home. I want to stay here as a grown woman who chooses to share her life with her mother." What's the difference? The difference is I'm going to pay my share of expenses. I'm going to contribute to house upkeep, and I'm going to treat this relationship as a partnership between 2 independent women who love and respect each other. Iris, you don't need to. Yes, I do, Mom. I need our relationship to be different from what it was before. Before I was a daughter who took her mother's love and care for granted. Now I want to be a grown woman who values and takes care of the most important relationship in her life. And your job. I'm going to keep working, but not necessarily cleaning offices forever. I want to go back to school. I want to prepare myself to do something more meaningful with my life. But I want to do it step by step, earning every opportunity. Do you have any idea what you want to study? Yes, I want to study social work. These past weeks have taught me how many people are going through difficult situations without anyone to support them. I want to use the resources we have to help other women who are going through what I went through. It was perfect. Iris had not only learned to value what she had, but she'd found a way to use her experience for something constructive. And what about Daniel? Mr. Reeves told me he was arrested in France for the fraudulent marriage. He's going to be deported soon. But honestly, Mom, I don't care anymore. That part of my life is over. You don't feel any resentment? No. Daniel did me a favor without even knowing it. If he hadn't abandoned and betrayed me, I never would have hit rock bottom. And if I'd never hit rock bottom, I never would have learned to truly value what I have. That night, for the first time in months, I went to bed completely at peace. My plan had worked perfectly. Iris had not only learned the lessons she needed to learn, but she'd emerged from the experience as a stronger, wiser, and more compassionate person. Vincent would have been so proud. 6 months later, our life had found a new balance neither of us could have imagined before. Iris finished her social work studies with excellent grades, and I decided to use some of my resources to establish a foundation to help women in situations of domestic violence and financial abandonment. Mom, the letter from the university arrived. Iris said one morning, coming into the kitchen with an envelope. I was accepted into the master's program. I start next semester. But Mom, I want you to know I'm going to pay for it with my own savings. I've been saving money from my job at the community center. The salary wasn't high, but she'd learned to live with essentials and to value every dollar she earned. Are you sure? We can easily afford the master's program. I know, but I need to do it on my own. It's part of who I am now. Diane came to visit that afternoon, as she had done every Friday for the past months. She'd become a confidant to both of us, watching our transformation with fascination. Margaret, I have to confess something, she said, pouring herself a second cup of tea. At first, I thought you were very cruel to Iris. And what do you think now? Now I think you were the wisest mother I've ever known. Look at your daughter. Really look at her. It was true. The Iris who was in the living room studying for exams was completely different from the one who'd left for Italy months ago. This Iris had serenity that came from within, confidence based on her own achievements, not material possessions. Did you know I saw Iris at the grocery store yesterday buying vegetables for a family she's helping through her job? And when I asked why she was using her own money instead of the organization's budget, she told me some things can't be measured in official budgets. That night, Iris and I had dinner on the porch, something that had become a tradition. It was our time to talk about the day, plan for the future, and simply enjoy each other's company. Mom, I received a very strange letter today, she said, cutting her salad. From whom? From Daniel. My muscles tensed. Daniel? He wrote to you. From where? From prison in France. Apparently, he was sentenced to 3 years for marriage fraud. In the letter, he says he regrets everything he did and wants to ask for my forgiveness. And how do you feel about it? Honestly, I don't feel anything. No anger, no sadness, no desire for revenge. It's as if that part of my life happened decades ago, not months ago. Are you going to write back? No, not because I hate him, but because there's nothing to say. That Iris who married him no longer exists. This Iris has nothing to discuss with him. I was impressed by the maturity in her voice. The woman sitting across from me had developed inner strength that came from hitting rock bottom and getting up on her own. You know what this whole experience taught me, Mom? What? That true love isn't the one that tells you what you want to hear. True love is the one that teaches you what you need to learn, even when it hurts. It's a difficult lesson to learn, but a necessary one. Daniel told me what I wanted to hear. He made me feel special. He convinced me I deserved a life of luxury without effort. You taught me true wealth comes from hard work, respect, and genuine relationships. That night, after Iris went to her room to study, I sat on the porch alone, looking at stars, thinking about Vincent. I'd promised him I'd take care of our daughter, and I finally felt I'd fulfilled that promise in the right way. I hadn't taken care of her by giving her money when she needed it. I'd taken care of her by teaching her to take care of herself. I hadn't saved her by solving her problems. I'd saved her by allowing her to learn to solve them on her own. The next day was Sunday, and we'd planned to visit the lake house together for the first time since I'd gotten it back. Iris hadn't wanted to go before, saying she needed time to process everything that had happened. Are you ready? I asked as we got into the truck. I think so. The trip was silent but comfortable. When we arrived, Iris stood for a moment in the truck, looking at the house where we'd spent so many family summers. It looks exactly the same, she said finally. Some things don't change, but others do. I'm not the same person who sold this house. We went in together. The house was clean and tidy, exactly as Vincent and I had kept it for years. Iris walked through each room, touching furniture, looking at family photos hanging on walls. Mom, I want to apologize. You already apologized, honey. No, I want to apologize specifically for this house. Not just for selling it, but for reducing all our family memories to a commercial transaction. It's forgiven. This house represents 30 years of family summers, of birthdays, of holidays. Dad built that porch with his own hands. You planted that garden. I learned to swim at that beach. And I turned it all into money to fund the adventure of a worthless man. She sat on the sofa where Vincent used to read on Sunday mornings. You know what hurts me most? What? That when I sold it, I didn't feel anything. It was just another property. Now being here again, I can feel Dad in every corner. I can hear his laughter, smell his morning coffee, see his reading glasses on the table. He is here, Iris. He's always been here. I know. And I also know he's proud of how you handled all of this. We spent the whole day at the house, cooking together, cleaning, fixing small details. It was like a ritual of reconnection, not just with the place, but with the values that place represented. When the sun began to set, we sat on the porch Vincent had built, looking at the lake. Mom, I have a proposal. What is it? I want us to turn this house into a temporary shelter for women who are leaving situations of domestic violence. A place where they can stay while they rebuild their lives. It was the perfect proposal. Vincent would have loved the idea that his lake house would serve to help other families. I think that's a beautiful idea, honey. We can use some of the foundation's resources to maintain it, and I can oversee the program through my job. Are you sure you want to turn our family sanctuary into that, Mom? The best sanctuaries are the ones that are shared. Dad always said a house isn't truly a home until it opens its doors to people who need love. He was right. Vincent had always been generous with our home, inviting relatives, friends, neighbors who needed a place to stay. We returned home that night with a new project and a completely renewed relationship. We were no longer mother and daughter, united by obligation or need. We were two women who'd consciously chosen to build a life together based on love, respect, and a common purpose. That night, before falling asleep, I spoke to Vincent in silence. We did it, my love. Our daughter finally understood what truly matters. And for the first time since his death, I felt he answered me. I always knew you would. You're both stronger than you think. Justice had arrived not as revenge, but as education. Not as punishment, but as transformation. And in the end, we'd both gained something much more valuable than money. We'd gained an authentic relationship built on a solid foundation that no future crisis could destroy. Sometimes the cruelest act of love is letting someone fall. Because only when they hit bottom do they learn to stand on their own. And only when they stand on their own do they understand the true value of the hands that were always there, waiting to guide them home.